Yes, morning.
Sir, are you able to hear me?
Yeah, yeah. We are.
Hello?
We are able to hear you, sir.
Yeah, thank you so much. Good morning. Good morning once again to all of
Morning.
you and members of the jury. I am Dr. N.J. Rajaram, CEO of Apparel and Textile Parks, Government of Telangana. I am presenting this on behalf of Mrs. Shailaja Rama Iyer, who is the Commissioner of Handlooms and Textiles and Apparel Parks. Incidentally, I am also the CEO and Managing Director of Apparel Parks. The presentation and the discussions which we will take on is on the Telangana State Textile and Apparel Policy. This is called TTAP in short form. It was introduced in the year 2017 in the month of August. Uh, Early days, the department was under the commissionerate of single application, means a single form of evaluating the textile incentive applications without distinguishing from any other, without distinguishing from the other industries or other industry incentive applications. Well, that had its own problems in terms of, the industry, the textile industry per se wanted its own evaluation method, its own guidelines, and its own policies for awarding incentives, for deciding on the incentives. Of course, when you come to the industries, there are so many industries coming to Telangana for investments. The industry experts wanted a separate unit which would decide on their incentives. That's the reason a separate textile and apparel policy was defined, and it has become a standardized guideline for implementation of the incentive policies. So from there onwards, we have been improving step by step. That is, we have been able to attract a lot of investments in Telangana, to Telangana, primarily because Telangana is a prime producer of cotton. And of course, of late, we have also been insisting on technical textiles as well as non-cotton sort of fibers. So in this process, seeing the government taking an initiative of separating the textiles from the major industries and having its own implementation plan for the incentive decisions, we have been able to attract quite a number of textile industries, garment industries, spinning industries, ginning industries, so on and so forth, both on the conventional textiles as well as on the technical textiles. So as we started implementing the policy, we had difficulties in the early stages, primarily because we had no computerized system. We have no automated system. So what we decided was probably an automated system would help us do this to the satisfaction of the stakeholders. In other words, to the satisfaction of the industry as well as the industry requirements. That's the reason we designed an application called TTAP. It's a software application, takes into consideration various aspects of submission of the applications, the periodical assessment of the applications, the workflow process taking place for the assessment of the claims, so on and so forth. This has eased our job now. In the process, this has also encouraged the industries to come in and invest in Telangana. Fundamentally, the whole objective of this policy is to improve on the capacity building in the textile sector. So with the introduction of this software, with the introduction of automation in this area, so people had developed a lot of confidence. And they said that Telangana is a state where we should start investing in. I have the statistics of how many have come in quite recently as well. And also, I will also, based on the feedback, I will also take you through the application once I complete my presentation. Now, so seeing a good growth of handlooms and textiles in Telangana, we have seen there is a surge in the number of investors. Not only that, the earlier stages we had to do it manually. Manually, when we are doing things, we had a lot of difficulties in terms of following up with the process flows, instilling responsibilities on the stakeholders, that is the nodal agencies in the process
Excuse me,
workflow.
your
Then
slides
again
are
we
not
had to.
moving. The slides are not moving.
Yes, sir. Yeah. I'm taking you through. So people wanted excellence in governance, and fundamentally we were insisting on the development of technology, use of technology across processes. And of course, a very important thing is there was a great encouragement for women to come as investors. So, and very important along with this is the services provided to the investors has to be enhanced in terms of, say, providing them services within the committed timeline, so on and so forth. So the development of the software, as well as the definition of standardized guidelines, uh, would enable us to identify the real beneficiary, the deserving beneficiaries. Earlier, when we had to do it manually and the guidelines were not based on certain set of rules, we had difficulties. Primarily, we are not able to identify the right beneficiary. So we thought the best way to do is to have a rule-based automation wherein the applicant applies, and subsequently we enable the application to go through a flow process. And finally, we come out with the proper decisions on who the deserving party is, to whom the incentives are to be provided to. The very important point which I would want to talk to you about, in addition to, as with any other workflow process, is the accountability of the various stakeholders in the workflow. When I look at my workflow of assessment of an application, it starts from an officer called the district level officer. It goes to something called an investment evaluation committee. Then it goes to a state level committee, so on and so forth. So there are multiple stakeholders involved in evaluating this. Plus, there are a number of documents, a number of aspects to be, evaluated. I was telling you, there are around 19 types of incentives provided by the government, offered by the government as per the guidelines provided in the policy. So what we do is to assess this manually, it becomes a difficult task, a very Herculean task, I would say. So the best way what we thought was to come up with an application or a software to do the assessment. So with this, what would happen is we would also bring in the responsibility for each of the officers. And since they had to commit to their turnaround times as well as the committed due dates, they would not sit in the process. They would not sit in the files as in the regular process as being done in the manual handling of the applications. So this will instill the responsibilities in the officers, and also this will expose the flow of the process in terms of transparency. Very important we could see in the automation is, as I was talking to you about the seamless collaboration between various stakeholders. I've been repeatedly talking to you about this. Then an important thing which was appreciated by the various stakeholders from the industry as well is we had developed customized templates and screens. That is, an institution would want to apply for an incentive, it had a standardized template through which they would apply. Plus, the computations were very laborious when you are done, when you're doing it manually, primarily because the computations involved various rules, various regulations. As I was telling you, there are 19 different types of incentives, and each of these incentives had its own peculiarity. For example, a land incentive was different from a capital incentive. A capital incentive is different from how you offer incentives for the working capital interest, so on and so forth. So with the difficulty of computations and with the, non-standardization of set of rules, it becomes very, very difficult for the officers to evaluate an application with the committed timelines or with the committed turnaround times. An important aspect of the automation is the ability to upload documents. Well, when we had a manual process, we used to find difficulty in handling these papers. Well, these papers, however much we try to concise, or however much we try to templatize them, it finally turns out to be a laborious one, a lengthy one. And retaining these documents and subsequently referring to them, for the next set of claims, it becomes difficult for us. Then even the stakeholders from the industry find it very easy for them to upload documents, to submit their documents, because things when going online, they have their own method. They log into the system, they submit their applications, and the traversal or the track of the application is shown across, is exposed to them. Finally, we could also set different timelines based on the efficiency or the productivity of the officers. A very important thing in the governance system is the audits. So an automated system would enable us to retain the logs, retain the documents, as well as to maintain the trails of the audit. So subsequently, when there is a query or an RTI, then it will become easier for us to provide replies, because there could be a reference from the claims to the set of processes and calculations to the initial application filed by the applicant. A very important thing, I'll just complete that. I have a very important point which has to be also mentioned is about the security as well as the compliance of the rules. So finally, we did have some challenges, which I thought I should also mention. The first challenge is on the transformation from the manual to automation, because we had to train our workforce and particularly the officers who are handling these. And second is retention of information. Of course, when I automate things, I had to manage the hardware, I had to manage the infrastructure, so on and so forth. And we also difficulty in educating the industry per se, because they had so long they had looked at a manual form of approval, submission, so on and so forth. And of course, we have to invest something extra on the management of infrastructure. Finally, this particular process, this method of automation really has dismissed aspects related to evaluation of the application. There were no biases. There were no individuals' jurisprudence or his own particular viewpoint. So independent of the individual's intervention in terms of his own opinion, we are able to now do a method of evaluation quickly to the satisfaction of the applicant as well as transparently. This is what I want to talk to you about. In case we have time, I can take you through the application as well.
No, maybe we can take some other time.
Yeah. Thank you.
You see, good presentation, no, overall. Tell me one thing, because the very purpose of introducing automation is to see that things move fast, right?
Yes,
one of the objectives.
Yes, sir.
And tell me now, what is the average time taken to get an incentive now vis-a-vis the earlier system?
Okay. There are various turnaround. Once an application is completely filled in, that is duly completed in terms of documentation, in terms of the data provided, in terms of the credibility of the information, we take around a month. Actually, it should be 15 days. Between 15 days to a month is the committed time to the end users.
As against the earlier?
As against the earlier, it was indeterministic. Against the earlier, it was indeterministic because it was a manual process. It used to take sometimes months, and sometimes not in first in, first out.
Correct. And similarly,
it's a very important point.
You are telling me right beneficiary, no?
Yeah.
You are able to identify the right person who is to be given incentive.
Absolutely, no? Sir.
So earlier you had a lot many cases where you were not able to really do justice to the right person.
Yes, sir. And the priorities we couldn't determine. Primarily, the earlier method of manual, evaluation.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, sir. Very good presentation.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much.
I have no question. Thank you, please.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir, for presentation.